So, welcome to Northern Powerhouses, our business success stories series of interviews, where we discuss with local business leaders their successes and challenges, and their backgrounds and what's really driving them forwards. And this morning, I'm delighted to have with us Diane Coolican, who's founding director at Redsky Learning. So, Diane, firstly, thank you for spending a bit of time with us. And if you'd like to introduce yourself, Redsky Learning, what you do, and how you help people, that would be wonderful.
Thanks, Chris. It's a pleasure to be with you today.
Thank you.
Red Sky Learning, we have been, well, it's actually our 20th year of
Brilliant.
business. So I would probably class that as our first achievement, which is making 20 years, which never ceases to amaze me. Um, we, I set the business up. With well 20 years ago by accident, I have to say. And I worked in various corporate organizations in leadership development L&D roles. And what actually happened is I had two children and asked if I could go part time, and the answer was no, not doing it.
Right.
We don't offer that. That's not an option. So I kind of ended up leaving and setting up my own business, which surprisingly, and I won't name the company for obvious reasons, I then ended up going back and doing a lot of work for them 3 days
Brilliant.
a week.
Brilliant.
It was initially an accident. And then one of my clients that I was working with for quite a while suggested that I could grow it as a business, which is what he'd done with his business, which was nothing to do with leadership development.
Right.
And he supported me on that initial part of the journey.
Brilliant.
He was coaching me. I don't think he realized he was coaching me at all. He was an expert in his field and very successful at the business he did. And that's how really Red Sky came about. And 20 years later, we are still here.
Wonderful.
So the team's grown significantly. We've moved offices in that time 3 or 4 times. And we're now in offices in the centre of Leeds, which was a decision that we wanted to because we felt we were more accessible, not just to Leeds, but actually nationally. And we
Yeah.
do very much operate on a national and international basis. Um, and we're very, very close to the centre of Leeds, and we have some amazing and inspiring space there.
Wonderful.
So in terms of Red Sky Learning, wasn't really quite sure what our specialisms would be at the time, and therefore chose the name Red Sky as fairly a generic name. So
Yep.
it gave us some choices again, and we were still experimenting. My passion was leadership development, but there was obviously other areas of coaching and of developing culture, customer service initiatives, brand, all those sorts of things. And we weren't quite sure where we were going to head. As it is, we then did pursue the leadership route, which is where we've pretty much stayed. So our offer is leadership development programs, um, one-to-one coaching for maybe specific projects, or it could be as part of a program. We also offer team high performance team support, and we offer talent programs. And one of the newer parts of our business, which is something that really inspires me, is the work that we do with women and women in leadership. And that actually came about around 10 plus years ago, 10, 12 years ago, when we were asked to work with a particular police service who'd recognised they weren't getting enough women into more senior levels. So I'm going back sort of 10, 15 years here,
Yeah.
and asked us if we would work with them. We are still, and we were then, a female-led business, and
Yep.
we are still a female-led business.
Brilliant.
And it was an area of interest. So that's when we started to move into that area. And then around, just trying to remember how old I am, and then around 6, 7 years ago, my daughter went into the workplace post university. So post her master's degree, she went into her first, what I would call real job or corporate job. And she would share in the workplace, as you'd expect, that was going on. And she'd be telling me stories about situations she was in and she wasn't sure how to navigate them. And there might be small things from being talked over in meetings to not being included in things, or her opinion didn't seem to be valued or acknowledged. And I just thought, you're kidding me. It's 30 years since I entered the workplace and there's the same challenges. And I
Mm.
was actually completely heartbroken by this. And that's when I decided to put a lot more of our time and energy into supporting women in the workplace.
Brilliant.
It isn't our only programs. I'd say it's probably about 30% of our business, but it is an area that I am so, so passionate about and that I think is so very, very important. Um, and that is one of the key areas that we work in terms of both a lot of one-to-one coaching, but we also have a variety of programs and interventions. And what I have loved is that organisations are really embracing these. And don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that leadership development programs or one-to-one coaching is a way to solve some of that inequity in the workplace. There are a lot of other
Yeah.
issues which I completely acknowledge. However, I think empowering women to be able to challenge, ask the right
Yeah.
questions, understand when maybe they need to have a new different skill set or a different approach. I do think that has made a significant difference. And a lot of our measures, our outcome measures, are based on subsequent promotions or engagement or involving women in areas that maybe they weren't involved. And I did initially think it would be predominantly very male dominated organisations, and it is, but there are other organisations where actually they have a much better gender balance, but they're still not getting women into those more senior roles. And we have engaged with them as well.
Wonderful. Wonderful. It's great to see that because uh, yeah, for lots of different reasons, I think it's something that's really, really important to do. And so, I mean, you mentioned how you got into business, but when you were growing up, did you foresee this was what you'd be doing at this point in your life, or did you have other things planned for yourself?
Not at all, not in a million years. I can I completely see why I do it, because it really does play to my strengths and my personality and my passions. I think my parents thought I was going to be an academic, so an absolute bookworm. At university, I did politics and history, and
Yeah.
really, it was more about the academia. However, when it actually came to getting, let's say, a real job, I didn't really have much of an idea, and I went onto a grad scheme. And as part of the grad scheme, there was different routes you could take after a certain point, and that's when I went down the people side,
Yeah.
and the HR, the people and culture, and the people and leadership development. So that's the route that I ended up going down, and then worked in various corporate organisations, had great fun, worked in public sector and private sector, which, oh my goodness, those are, when you move from one of those to a full-time role in another, that is quite a culture shock, I can tell you, but
Yes.
fascinating. Just, yeah. And the
Brilliant.
drive, the motivation to get people involved in development just comes from a completely different place, from my experience.
Yes.
Obviously, that was some time ago. And then I was fortunate to be sponsored by a retail organisation that I worked for to do a master's in leadership and strategic thinking, which of course was right up my street in terms of the academic element. So I absolutely adored that. And then again, at that point in my career, I was also very lucky and fortunate to have a coach. And I think I was quite young in my career to have a coach and to have that opportunity. And it's only when I reflect on it now that I realise what an amazing opportunity that was.
Yep.
I'd say I was late 20s, and it's not, even now, I wouldn't say we spend a lot of time coaching people as young as that. We do, but they're not the majority of the people
Yes.
that we work with. So I was really privileged to have that
Yeah.
opportunity as well at that point.
Wonderful. Wonderful. And I'm keen to the sort of the biggest issues to overcome. But I mean, you mentioned it. You're in your 20th year. We look at we're similar. We've just achieved 20 years in business. And but I don't know if you're aware of the statistics, which are quite shocking, unfortunately. Which is 80% of businesses fail in the first 5 years of operation, and of the 20% that survive, another 80% of those will fail in the following 5 years. So to get to just 10 years puts you in the top 4% of businesses. So I don't have the stats past that because there aren't, but we're getting into fractions of percents, I think. So absolutely well done. But if you look back over those 20 years, what would you say are some of the biggest challenges you've had to overcome?
Um, I think the biggest one has been growth and not having an infrastructure to grow.
Yeah.
I think that's probably been one of the real challenges. I think as well, probably, and gosh, this comes up in so much of the work I do, but the whole imposter syndrome and not necessarily being brave and not jumping when there were some opportunities or taking risks when perhaps that was the right thing to do. And like you say, a lot of SMEs fail, and they fail quite early on. And arguably, maybe some of that is from taking risks. But I do think that's an important part of running a business,
Yeah.
is to experiment. It is to push yourself out of your comfort zones. It is to take risks. And I think those occur in lots and lots of different ways, not just in terms of markets, but your infrastructure, the type of people that you employ. It's quite easy to end up employing like types.
Yes.
And as we know, too many like-minded people is not an effective
No.
way to grow a business, expand a business. So, but of course, again, with an SME, you kind of want everyone to get on and you want everyone to feel they fit in. So you do end up going down that route a little bit. And I think probably my own imposter syndrome and nervousness about taking on, taking on the Leeds office, which is premium space. It's a large space. It's in a great place. That was terrifying at the time. And that sounds like a really tiny step, but it was a massive commitment.
Yeah.
And then over the years, growing the team. So I think that's probably one of them. And I think, I guess another one is sometimes, and we have had and do have some absolutely amazing clients. Clients that I would never have thought would want to work
Brilliant.
with a tiny northern business, some real big international clients. I do spend a lot of my life up and down to London, and again, we've worked in the Middle East, we've worked in Canada, we've worked in America, or still do that. So these are global clients as well.
Yeah.
And I think I was very reluctant to get involved with some of those types of businesses because what would they think of us? A tiny little business that at one point worked out of a barn in the middle of North Yorkshire. So yeah, those are some of the things. And then obviously as you've mentioned, COVID was a really, really scary place. And
Yeah.
I think for all small businesses, for so many reasons, and large businesses alike, but I think large businesses probably have had a little bit more maybe contingency planning, or had enough people who may have experienced similar challenging scenarios, not necessarily COVID, but maybe big financial challenges or collapses in the past, or maybe particular industries that were struggling. COVID was scary, but actually, and it was scary, but opened up a completely different opportunity for us as a business and a
Yeah.
completely different side of the business. And up until COVID, I would say what we delivered virtually was fairly minimum.
Yes.
And that changed overnight. And not that we hadn't got that capability and hadn't worked in that virtual space, but it certainly wasn't something that clients requested or
Yeah.
asked for often. And literally I would be traveling, or we would be traveling up and down the country, or flying, or whatever that meant, for coaching sessions or workshops or face-to-face meetings. And it was such a different place, and overnight we had to learn very quickly.
Yeah.
And we were quite lucky, because we did have some programs that were pulled or put on hold, but a lot weren't.
Yes.
And organizations wanted to continue, they just needed to do it differently, and we learned masses from that,
It-
as I'm sure loads of businesses did. And from that, we've managed to keep, we've really kept some of the really great stuff, and changed some of the other elements back to pre-COVID in some respects.
yes. Yeah. It did make it many people thinking. We're finding this a lot. Now people looking back and saying, "Well, why did we travel? 3 hours for a 1 hour meeting and 3 hours back?"
Yes.
When this technology is pretty good at being able to deliver training, coaching, those sorts of things. Yes, I guess ultimately you can't beat sitting with somebody and being in front of somebody, but if you work 80-20 sort of rules, I think you get 80% of the value from obviously 20% of the effort and time. So it's probably, we found that too, is that people are, what COVID's allowed people to do is be much more comfortable using this technology, which
Yes.
yeah, and it always amazes me when I look back in my first business, we did a lot of international travel. Now we're very much local, but even then, you could travel. I could travel 2 hours to the coast when something like this technology would really work. And it's interesting you pointed about imposter syndrome. There's a lovely quote from I'm just trying to think it now. Stephen, I'm trying to think his name. The guy from Diary of the CEO, Stephen Bartlett. Sorry, forgive me. Diary of a CEO, and I love it because what he said was, he says he loves imposter syndrome because it means I'm in the right room. I'm going to learn something from the people here. And I just thought that's a great way to turn it around from something that could be, considered negative, and often feels negative, but something positive. If brilliant, I'm going to develop, I'm going to stretch and get out my comfort zone because I feel like this. If that's any use, brilliant. And what would you say from whether it's the challenges or the successes? What would you say are the biggest learnings about growing a business for you?
Oh, gosh. I'd like to say have a plan. Don't think we've ever really had a plan. It's being very responsive to what we're seeing or hearing, or opportunities that are presenting themselves. I'd say play to strengths. Definitely,
Yes,
definitely play to strengths. Whatever the situation is, what would we do? What could we bring to the party that other
brilliant.
people maybe can't, or not in the same way? And so I would definitely say, you need to play to strengths. Recruit people who think differently to yourself. As I said, that I mentioned that earlier, and it is something that sometimes feels uncomfortable, because what if they don't fit? What if they're not going to get on with everyone else? All those sorts of things. But recruit people that think differently, and recruit people for experiences and skill sets that you don't have.
Great.
And again, I've learned that, and probably in the last 5 or 6 years, I've really worked hard to make sure that the people that are coming into the business challenge my thinking first and foremost, but also just offer an angle, or skills or ideas that maybe I wouldn't have prioritized, or we wouldn't have prioritized or looked at in a certain way. Then again, take some risks in a careful, managed way, but take some risks, experiment, have a go. You
Right.
don't know if something is truly innovative and inspirational unless you try it, and you have to try it, and you have to, yeah, you have to put some investment into it, but most importantly, you have to believe in it. You have to be passionate about it. And I always describe part of our DNA as a business is passion. We are so passionate about what we do and how we do it, and we put a lot of energy into everything we do, whether it be our ideas, whether it be our meetings, whether it be our programs, whether it be events, whether it be coaching, whatever it is. I think we genuinely put energy and passion into everything we do. And that creates the impact. So I think in terms of growing a business, know what your strengths are, know what your core values are, know what you're amazing at, look for difference out there, be prepared to experiment, be prepared to fail as well. But you need to fail in a way that it's not going to undermine, obviously, your whole business, but prepare to fail by experimenting with certain things. And we have done that as well. And there are areas that we did invest in that didn't work out as we thought they would. And we learned so much
Yeah.
from those as well.
Brilliant, brilliant. I remember our founder, Brad, who is a very successful guy, telling me many, many years ago. It's always stuck with me, and he said he feels he's as successful he is because he's made more mistakes than anybody else he knows, rather than despite it. It was like that willingness to try, to accept that, failure, for want of a better word, is part of success. So no, absolutely makes absolute sense. And I think you're aware we're a coaching organisation as well, and I'm keen you've mentioned a couple of people, but who are the best coaches you've worked with, and what made a great coach, or what makes a great coach for you?
Um, as I mentioned, I was really fortunate that I had a coach quite early in my career, and that was kind of a whole new concept and experience. And I think what I've um, whether that was my best coach, I don't know. I see it as a really amazing experience
Yep.
because it was so early, and because she really did push me out of my comfort zone, and got me to very much think about. It was sort of future basing stuff. It was about where you want to be in 10 years. It was very much about my whole life. It wasn't necessarily
Yes.
around just work and career. And so I thought that was great. She worked on us in a strengths based
Yep.
approach, which was fantastic. And sorry, there's something going on in the background. So I'm so
Oh,
sorry.
good. It's how we're. This is the wonders of Zoom, isn't it? There's always something going on.
Uh, there's someone knocking at the door, and I think they might go, so I'm just going to wait and see if they go. But yeah, so she was absolutely fantastic, and I learned a lot from that. And then a few years ago, I was also fortunate to get involved in the delivery of a level 5 coaching program. It was the apprenticeship program, and that was great. Having that opportunity the other way around to coach
Yep.
future coaches.
Brilliant.
And obviously, a key part of that level 5 qualification is exactly that all of the delegates have a lot of one-to-one coaching, and the coaching is obviously around supporting them to become coaches. And I thought that was I loved that experience as well. And I have to say, for anyone who is a professional coach, try and spend some time teaching coaching. It just is awesome. It gets you right back to your roots. Why are we doing this? What are some of the amazing models out there? What are some of the different approaches we can be taking? When are you recognizing that a different style, a different approach, a different challenge? How are you reading situations? And it just takes you right back to the absolute core of coaching and the basics of coaching. And it was one of the best things. I'd love to get involved in delivering that program again. Um, just because I can't tell you how much I learned from that. And I know it's not about me, and it's about the people on the program who did so well and all qualified. But it was that whole experience.
Brilliant.
It's just such a good thing to do.
Brilliant. I think I love the phrase, the best way to learn something in depth is to teach it to somebody else, because you sort of
Yeah.
got it, haven't you? You've got to know your stuff.
Yes.
It's a great way, and I'm lucky enough to train a lot. I have been training a lot of our own coaches, and it's just a wonderful. You have to know your stuff, and you get asked better questions than you'd ask yourself of that information, if that makes sense. And then dealing with that, and obviously from a leadership perspective, that's what you do. What would you say are the facets that make a great leader? What's some of the things that you would um either see in other people or help people achieve in leadership? What makes a great leader, I guess, is the question.
And I think, again, coaching is a key element of that. And you mentioned quotes before, and one of them is one of the Simon Sinek coaches, sorry, quotes, and he talks about leaders should speak last in a meeting. And I
Yes,
love that. And for me, great leaders are great listeners. They ask
brilliant.
great questions. They're continuously curious. And taking even that phrase, be the last person to speak, it's recognizing as a leader that when you have a point of view, if you share that too soon, there can be a tendency for other people to go along with it when actually maybe there's loads of stuff we're missing here.
Abs-
And I love that quote. So great leaders, they ask questions, they listen. But the other one is empathy. I'm working with a group last week, and we did a whole half-day workshop. These are senior leaders on empathy, on putting yourself in other people's shoes, on really
yeah,
genuinely working at understanding where other people are coming from, what's important to them, what is getting in the way of them doing the amazing job that they want to do every day. Again, all of that, it relates to asking great questions. It relates to um, listening. But yeah, a whole
brilliant.
session on empathy. And it was quite interesting because often when we run sessions with groups of leaders, um, you often have discussions about what gets in the way of you doing this great job, of you leading, what stops you taking your business to where you want to. Oh, it's people, it's this, they do this, they do this, there's this not happening, they're not taking this. And as soon as you start asking the question, why? Why? What is stopping them? Because people never come to work to do a bad job.
Absolutely.
Stuff happens. And if we can unblock that, or help, even better, help them unblock that, we can create a space where people bring their best selves to every situation.
Yep.
So in terms of leadership, I just think that Simon Sinek quote really is pivotal to everything that we do. And so many, whatever leadership programs, discussions, webinars, or whatever we're running, I think it often comes back to what could you do to unlock that? What are you actually listening to? What are you hearing? Actually, what are you hearing, but what's actually really going on as well? So yeah, I would say it's very
Brilliant.
much that sort of stuff. I think leaders also need to be very self-motivated. They need to be visionary. They need to be conscious of working on their business and not in their business. And I've been guilty of that, and I still am guilty of that. I know I get my head down, and it's that little academic that I mentioned at the beginning. I can get my head stuck into something, and I'm so excited about it, or this model, or what you could do with it, or what it means, or the layers to it, that sometimes I can lose sight of what my role is in terms of leading a team and leading a business. And that's another one. Work on your business, and not just in your
Yeah.
business.
I-
And I think having that whole resource, that internal energy to keep going, for example, COVID, when things get really tough,
yes.
you have to be the one that's coming out looking tough, looking like this is all manageable and navigatable, when perhaps inside you don't really believe that some of the time.
Absolutely. Absolutely brilliant. Absolutely. Because I think a phrase we used a lot in that COVID space was you can't not communicate. So how we just walk into a room. I appreciate in COVID, perhaps we're walking into a meeting or you're coming online, but how we can't not communicate. So it's really important that in difficult times we're communicating with body language, that we're still we still have a plan, we still have the vision and the passion. Yeah, it was funny when you were talking about the Silicon Valley. I mean, the number of meetings I've been in when the leader would say, look guys, I really need your input on this, but before we start, let me tell you what I think. And so where are you going to go with that? It's very, very
Yeah.
difficult to change that. But no, it's, and I think your point about getting stuck in the working in not on it is the challenge. I think we have is culturally we're taught that the phrase "the harder you work, the more successful you'll be," which is absolutely correct to a certain level
Yeah.
of growth in a business. But ultimately, our job then is leadership as opposed to doing the day-to-day work, and it's very it is quite a difficult mindset change, I think, for many people to go from, right, how hard do I need to work to make this change, or who do I need to manage, lead, who do I need to involve, because our job is steering the ship, not pulling the sails up, if that makes any
Yes.
sense. It's
Yeah,
um,
completely.
and if
Yes.
we're pulling the
Yeah.
sails up, I often say to people, look, the desire to pull the sales up with people when it's absolutely necessary is great, but while you're doing that, the people around you are wondering who's actually steering the ship, and they actually want us steering the ship, not, they love the fact that we might get our roller sleeves up, etc., at the right point, but our job is different to theirs now, and we need to embrace, we need to embrace that, and do our job as, and let them do theirs in many ways.
Yes, agreed. Absolutely. And I need to remind myself a lot of the time
Sorry,
when I'm getting really passionate or excited about something, yeah, that actually, yeah, involve others.
but it's a great. I mean, but I think the thing is to accept that it's a great mark of a great person. The fact that we want to get stuck in as much as we can, but it's then demonstrating that actually we want to help you. So, I mean, alongside that, what would you say you've learned about yourself through your journey so far, Diane?
Oh gosh. Well, similar to I've talked about before, really, which is I think I will always have imposter syndrome. I will always have situations where I sit there and wonder, why am I here? Why me? Why am I included in this? But it's knowing that I've got ways to navigate that, and that I've got ways to be able to tap into what I genuinely believe I can bring to the party or I can offer. So I do think that I think resilience. I've had to become this incredibly resilient person, and obviously building that resilience doesn't just impact in the workplace; it impacts your entire life,
Yes.
because you know there are so many other areas, and I have had to, I guess, toughen up quite quickly. And one of the things that I'm always wary about as well is if I am struggling, or when I have got doubts, or when I am worried about certain decisions we might have made, or certain stuff that's going on in or around the business or the economy, or, you know, the government, or whatever that stuff might be. I've got to learn when is the right time to share it and when isn't it the
Yeah.
right time to share it. And much as I've said, you know, involve your team in things, those are perhaps times when you shouldn't do that, or at least you
Yeah.
shouldn't do it at the wrong time, and be clear. So you've got to understand yourself on such a deeper level than I ever thought
Yes.
possible, or I would need to, and know that when actually some of your behaviors might undermine what you're trying to do and achieve, and might shoot you
Yes.
in the foot. So that doesn't mean take it all home and dwell on it, but it does mean that you need to coach yourself, for want of a better description, and you need to actually spend some time and sit down, and you know, whether we call it mindfulness, whether we call it meditation, whether we call it self-coaching, whatever version of that it is, but really understand what you feel is getting in the way of stopping you being able to navigate this and to take this forward. And I've learned that, and actually have to say I'm pretty good at it these days.
Brilliant.
So I
Brilliant.
can get myself really worried about something, and but manage it quite quickly and quite carefully
Yep.
into something that's more positive and productive. So what I'm taking to the team is, this has happened, or this could happen. It could be concerning. However, let's explore this. What are your thoughts on this? You need to present problems in a really positive way that people can work with and work on. So again, resilience as a leader, I think,
Brilliant.
is another one. I've talked about passion. You've got to believe in what you do. You've got to be passionate through to your core about what you do, because you will question yourself, particularly over 20 years, in a number of different ways. And I think it's, again, I think I might have mentioned this already. It's also about knowing that there is some amazing people, ideas, resources out there, and you might have an idea, you might have something that you think has got legs or got mileage, but you need to involve others in that because there will be so many more dimensions to it that you've just not thought about. So it's always about that. It's always about involving others, planting seeds, and not trying to drive it all by yourself, because that generally you're going to have missed some stuff.
Yes, and it's exhausting trying to drive it by
Yeah.
ourselves too. And it
Yeah.
and you know that when typically if we've recruited great people and most of us do, then you know it's leading going back to that point of engaging with great people. No, that yeah that all makes sense in many ways. It's funny you were saying about that you know what you share and what you don't. We work primarily with the owners of SME businesses. That's our sort of space, and it's providing that ability sometimes to offload those fears and concerns when, as you say,
Yes.
it's not sensible to share with the team right now. It's not great to take them home, and it's just sometimes be able to talk things through, which I think is a big part of coaching, to then see them for what they are, their fears. They're not necessarily realities, and accepting that. And
Yes. Yes.
I
I
think.
agree.
Sorry, go on. Yeah. It because you know it's tough at the top. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah.
It's a tough thing because most people naturally, I think, in leadership roles care about the people they lead, and the challenges we can in many ways overcare and think you know that their lives and their careers are all based on our ability, you know, on us, on our shoulders.
Mm,
That's a heavy load to take, I think. Um, and
definitely.
and I think sometimes relieving ourselves of that and understanding that we're all grown ups.
Yeah.
That you know, let's just focus on doing our job and yeah, and doing the best we can, and let them do the best we can. So, looking forward, then, Diane, what does the future look like for Red Sky Learning, and what challenges do you think you might face, if any?
I think there'll be quite a lot of challenges. I think some of them will be experiences that I've probably over 20 years already kind of experienced. So I've got some skills and tools under my belt. We want to continue to grow. As I've said, we one of the areas that I am so passionate about, and we're investing more time and energy in, is the women's space.
Great.
We currently run networking events twice a year that are free networking events to any of our clients or people that are interested. And the next one actually is 7th of March in Leeds, and that event we've got a guest speaker who's going to be talking about AI and the impact that could have on women. Since a lot of AI data is based on male data for a
Right.
variety of reasons I won't go into now. But
Oh,
if we're then going to start to use AI perhaps as for first line interviews or interview assessments, maybe assessment centres are going to involve AI. I don't know, maybe medical procedures, some of the initial diagnostics could be AI led. We need to be really conscious of the questions we should be asking in our own
yeah.
organisations. So the women's area is something that we'll continue to work in. Also, women's programs that I've talked about, and we're developing some new programs for female non-exec directors. We already do programs for early careers and for middle level female leaders who are wanting to progress. Another area that that's taken off really well, and I'm really proud again, is supporting new parents. It tends to be women returning to work, and returning to work after a year is a really terrifying thing to do.
Yep.
And we work with lots of women. This is one-to-one coaching that we provide. And we have a program whereby we engage with women who are going on maternity leave or parental leave just before they go off, so usually a month. Then we support them with some kit days, and then we support them when they come back to the workplace. And what is a really consistent theme is how much confidence they can lose in that
Oh,
year, and how they come back to work and actually how much organizations can change in a year. The people within the organisation are completely oblivious to that, because
Yes.
obviously it's been lots of incremental change that they've just got under their belt. And one of my coaches said to me a few weeks ago, she said, do you know what? When you come back to work, your confidence is low. You feel you can't do your job anymore. And these are women that have had senior roles as well. They're not, it's a real variety of women coming
Yes.
back into the workplace. You feel you can't do your job anymore, your confidence is low, you don't know how to navigate the workplace. And she said to me, you only realize you've made a mistake because things have changed that you don't know about, you don't realize until you come up against it and you make a mistake. And that mistake's pointed out to you, but nobody in the room is recognizing that you weren't aware
Yeah.
that that had changed.
Yes.
And she said it just floors you to your core and you feel like you have to pick yourself up once again. And that's another area that I know we're going to continue to work in, because I think it's so very important. And all of our coaches, parental coaches, men and women, because we also offer adoption leave and men returning to the workplace, so all our coaches have lived experience. So they've actually had that experience and they've done it. They're all qualified coaches, obviously, and they've all worked in that leadership space. And so many of my coaches say to me, why didn't we have this 10 years ago when we were coming back into the workplace? They are so passionate about offering this
Brilliant.
service, and they see the need and the impact that it makes on people who are coming back into the workplace after 6-12 months out, just not able to see and operate what it is that they're dealing with.
Yes.
So yeah, that's one area that we will continue to work in and will continue to grow.
Brilliant. Brilliant. And I'm keen to know what you'd say to anyone that was thinking of going into business right now.
Oh, absolutely, 100% do it.
Right.
Completely. It will be the best thing you ever do. I would say, and I do say this to people, learn as much of as you can about the industry that you want to
Yeah.
operate in before you set your own business up, but make sure that what you have is newness, it's innovation, it's ideas, it's something that doesn't necessarily isn't there. That's where you'll add the value. But learn as much as you can, one, about running a business before you do it.
Yeah.
Second, I know that's not easy because you're probably an employee somewhere, but you can still learn.
Yeah.
I think there's ways to start to step your foot into running your own business in a more gentle way without
Yeah.
going, wholeheartedly, because we now live in a virtual world and there's lots of opportunities. I mean, I hear about loads about school kids who are running their own businesses. And I think that's amazing, and so liberating. You can start to do that. But also, there will be other opportunities out there. Talk to other people who've set their own businesses up.
Yeah.
If you can get a coach, get a coach. There will be groups, there will be local groups that you
Yes.
can join. Learn as much as you possibly can before you do it, but have something unique, have something that is different, that's got an edge. But you have to be 100% passionate about whatever it is that you're doing. Your passion is what will get you through. Your energy will dip at times, but your passion will make your business a success. I know I kept using that word today, but it's true.
Yeah.
It really is true.
Well, absolutely, and that comes across, and I love what you've just said there, and that's a quote from you. I'm gonna write down, which is your energy might drop, but your passion will get you through. Love that, absolutely love
Yes.
that, because that's bang
Yeah.
on. And it's accepting that, again, it's accepting that there's the highs and lows, and it isn't going to be great all the time, but passion gets you through. If you believe in what you do and you're there to serve people, or and achieve something, then that gets us through, even when energy drops, because that is a challenge for most people. So I love that. Thank you. And just looking back over 20 years, it's obviously you like me, it's quite a long way to look back. But is there anything, if you started again, is there anything you'd do significantly differently, do you think?
I think grow the team faster. recruit people faster.
Yeah.
And it's quite scary when it's your business and you're responsible. And you mentioned this earlier as well. You're responsible for these people's financial well-being, for their professional life, for their growth. And recruiting people is really, really scary. And I think we stayed too small for too long, and we should have recruited more. And because we didn't grow as quickly as we could have done.
Right.
Now,
Yeah.
I'm not saying that the goal is to grow quickly, because it isn't necessarily, but the goal is to utilize opportunities.
Yeah.
And you can't do that if you don't have an infrastructure, and you don't have people, and you don't have other additional experts that bring to the party what you don't have. And the only way to do that is grow your team and do it a lot quicker. We were too careful for too long, and I think could still be guilty of that at times. But you have to, because you cannot fully take on new opportunities if you've not got that in place.
Yep. Brilliant. Brilliant. And finally, what would be the best advice you could give an 18-year-old you if you were to go back in time and do that, Diane?
Definitely follow your dreams and your passion. And I guess be braver and bolder and believe in yourself. And at 18, I don't think you do, to be fair. At 58, you don't either. But believe in yourself. And there's another quote I like. I don't know who said this one. Well, there's the Ford one, isn't there? Which is the if you think you can, or you think you can't, you're right. And there's
Right.
another one that I use quite a lot. You'll never outperform your self-image. You have to believe in yourself, and you have to do it as quickly as you can. And 18 is a great time to start.
Brilliant. Very, very wise words. And thank you so much for spending time with us today. It's been really insightful, educational, and passionate. And that's the word that's gonna stick with me. And for anyone that's watching and would like to get in touch with you or Red Sky Learning, what would be the best way to do that?
My email, diane.coolican@redskylearning.com. We also have hello@redskylearning.com. And we have a Leeds-based office, so you can call us in the office, and we have a website with all those details on as well, Red Sky Learning. So yeah, we're pretty easy to find,
Brilliant. Brilliant.
and we'd love to hear from you.
Wonderful. So well for now, thank you so much. It'd be great to sort of swing by another 6, 12 months and just see how things have developed and learn a little bit more from you. But for now, thank you so much.
That'd be great. Thank you, Chris. Thanks for your time today.
Thank you.